And then, of course, week 2 will throw it all into chaos once again. But the only thing the crystal ball is positive about, it had told me when I shook the magic 8 ball, it said, we are absolutely positive the number 1 team in the ECC are the Trailblazers of Killingly. If you didn't watch their 41-32 win over Bishop Hendricken, you missed a couple of things. Number 1, I think it was the best regular season high school game environment I have ever been a part of. Number 2, Bishop Hendricken, the defending Division I state champions out of Rhode Island, are really talented and really good. And number 3, the Killingly program is so sound, and all you needed to see was the 200 youth kids from across football, cheerleading, and stuff that were on the field with them before the game.
I had a moment of panic where I thought that I had forgotten to update our score graphic and change the quarter from first quarter to second quarter, and then I looked at the scoreboard on the field and realized that, no, we were, in fact, only 7 minutes into the first quarter of the game.
I won't name names, Great Wolf Lodge, but somebody out there did a really good job with getting the touchdowns because, my goodness, there were plenty of them, early and often.
So, no argument here. I would be shocked if anybody out there in ECC football land has an argument with that one. So let's get to where the arguments can begin.
All right, it starts right here. I have a new number 2 team. Fresh off a 45-15 win over ATI, 5 Porter Carter touchdowns puts the Fitch Falcons firmly in my number 2 spot. To me, of all the teams that won, other than Killingly, their win was the most complete / impressive win, coupled with some other teams scuffling. I put Fitch up in that 2 spot.
Agreed. Not sure. I think there are pockets of argument out there, but looking at the results, I don't think you can say much bad about Fitch.
So now my 3rd team is 0-1. I am dropping the Waterford Lancers down a slot. There's no such thing as a good loss, and 34-20 against Sheehan is a loss. Sheehan, however, top state opponent, very good team. Waterford, without a couple of players it expected to have, learning late that they were not going to be playing. So I think that I'm going to give them a pass. I'm not leaving them at 2. I'm dropping them because they lost. But I think we'll learn a lot more about them this week when they're at Stonington Friday, live on game day. But I think Waterford, if they're a full roster, they don't move much. And even if they're not, I still think they're up at the top.
I think that's a game that maybe not a lot of people expected Waterford to win. I think it's a game that they wanted to win. So what's going to be interesting to me is when Waterford hits that point in their season where it's not a game that they're expected to lose or expected to win. I said last time, I think, that I thought Waterford had a really, really high ceiling, and you don't often see teams at their ceiling, at their peak in week 1. So interested to see where their season goes.
Line played well. Chase Nolda I think is definitely the developing quarterback of the future there. He's very talented. Defense gave up a few too many points, so we'll see where Waterford falls in. Moving up 2 spots with a big 23-14 win over Woodstock. I have moved East Lyme up into the 4 spot. And the reason I did that is we were a little unsure. Now that the coach is settled in, we like the quarterback, we like the wide receiver, we know the running back off of injury, but the defense played really well and led them against Woodstock. I think East Lyme is probably better than I gave him credit for, but now they have to play Killingly on Friday.
So somebody the last time around said East Lyme is a team that's going to surprise some people.
Yeah, you're right. I
think
did.
you're one of those people.
I did. But you were actually on East Lyme even more so than I was. You really thought that they might surprise some people, and I definitely think their offense is better. It's the defense that played so well this past weekend that, to me, if they're a little bit more of a complete team on both sides of the ball, I think East Lyme can be really good. I'm not going to overreact to whatever happens Friday because they're playing Killingly Friday, and that's a whole other world. Here's where it gets a little bit interesting. Another team jumping up with I think maybe the second most impressive win over the weekend, 29-13 over Foreign. I have moved the Ledyard Colonels up into the 5 spot. Now, I love Mike Siricchio as a coach. I love what he does there with that team. I thought they could win that game, of course. I was very surprised. Cal Castavant had a huge game on the ground, and I think they ran the ball even better than they were expected to. If you're curious, go check out the 80-yard touchdown run in the grade 8. Ledyard, don't sleep on the Colonels. Again, similar to the East Lyme team, though, they're playing NFA this week. I think that, to me, of all the games this week, there are 2. NFA Ledyard is going to be the one that really helps me kind of figure some things out.
That's going to tell us a lot because just on paper, NFA, a very big school, Ledyard, a very small school. You would expect NFA to be the favorite in that game.
Sure.
Ledyard punches above their weight very frequently. No reason to expect that they won't do that this week. So, yes, very interested to see the result of that game.
And this is where the week 1 overreactions come into play. When teams play other teams that are physically stronger across the interior of the lines, it often results in mismatches week 1 to week 2. So Ledyard clearly dominated the line of scrimmage against Foreign. Can they dominate the line of scrimmage against NFA, who, to their credit, did not have a disappointing showing in week 1? So maybe they're at number 6? No. At number 6, vaulting from the top 10. When you pitch a shutout on defense, 27-0 over Bullard Haven's, Wyndham has jumped up all the way to number 6, the biggest riser. I put Wyndham in last week, and you agreed with me on pedigree alone. You're not a multiple-time, champion the way they are in their division, playing up in the States last year, great team. You don't have that pedigree and stay out of the top 10, but when you throw a 27-0 shutout out week 1 against anybody, you're moving up.
Results matter. It's a little hard talking about week 1 overreactions. We don't know a lot about these alliance games, and we don't know a lot about these teams from other parts of the state. So we may have a big overcorrection next week when these teams start playing ECC teams that we think we know more about. But Wyndham, kudos to them.
And they have Fitch this week. So there's we're going to learn a lot. Just like we said, Ledyard NFA is going to tell us a lot. I think Wyndham Fitch is going to tell us a lot. Find out how good that Wyndham defense is. But those week 1 alliance games are squirrely that way. You get a school that has a great class, they graduate, and then the next year they're weak, and then you get them the next year and they're back to business. You get Catholic schools who sometimes improve very quickly. So it's kind of tough to tell who's down and who's up, but Wyndham off the shutout vaults up to number 6. So that brings us to NFA. I don't know what to make of NFA. You were very high on NFA. I was cautiously optimistic on NFA. I don't think a 12-3 loss to Trumbull has any effect whatsoever on what they are. Like, I read nothing into that. You could argue that's a good loss, against a big school like Trumbull. You could argue the 100 yards on the ground from the lead running back is a positive sign. The 12 points given up is encouraging about the defense. The 3 concerns me. But not a lot because it's just a week 1.
Yeah, I feel like this might be an overreaction on your part, and we'll see what they do this week. I certainly would. I had them higher last week, and I would have them higher this week. But some of that might be on reputation.
We're going to find out this week, right? They're playing Ledyard. It's 7-5. If I'm wrong, next week I'll be the first to admit it. And same thing, as we see these teams play, I'll be moving them around as they go. But right now, I can't put the 2 teams that you see on the screen right now that have lost, both dropped. and teams that have risen above them had impressive wins. So if they both have a chance now to correct the loss and get back and rise back up. Number 8 last week was Bacon Academy, and they're going to stay right there at number 8 because they had a 16-13 win over Oxford, and a special shout out to Mason Howard. 3 field goals, which we don't see in high school very often, including one from 42 yards that sent the game into overtime, and then the winner in overtime. Congratulations to Coach Ladiga on his first win there at Bacon Academy. They're high on this group of kids. I know it's Oxford. I know they had to travel 7 days from the other end of the state, but a win's a win, and those are the games that the Bobcats have been learning to win over the past few years. Jumping out 1-0 is a good start for them.
I questioned the home cooking with your pick of Bacon last week. They showed they belong.
Now, they got Amistad this week, the real legit chance for them to go 2-0, and I think there's a psychological thing to going 2-0. It makes you feel much better about your season, obviously. So let's see where the Bobcats go from here. Moving down all the way from number 5, Griswold. I don't know what to make, obviously. 35-26 loss to Seymour. Offensively, 26 points seems about right. Defensively, 35 given up seems a little bit disappointing. We'll see where Griswold rebounds this week. They certainly are a team that I was very high on, having them all the way up at number 5. Maybe I'd say perhaps the most disappointing loss of the week for me, and I do that knowing nothing about how good Seymour is or isn't. Griswold's going to have to get back up on the rise.
Yeah, I felt that Griswold pick by you last week was a little bit based on reputation, and so like they've got to live up to those expectations.
So moving in, making their debut on the power rankings at number 10 are the Valley, Plainfield, if you will. Moving in, the Panthers. They won their opening week game. They are 1-0. They were one of the 4 teams I had on the outside looking in. I'm not going to leave them on the outside looking in coming off of a victory. Stonington, Montville, Woodstock, those were the other 3. They all lost, so they're staying on the outside looking in. So it's clear who dropped. The New London Whalers. And I'm going to say this because I'm going to hear about this one. You lost pretty soundly to Berlin. 51 points given up to Berlin. But New London is incredibly young, and they are probably starting more first-time starters and first-time varsity players than they have in a long time. And to go up against a program like Berlin, which is a state program that is known to be big physical numbers-wise, that's a really tough ask. In many ways, it was like last year, they went to go play hand week 1. And as good as and talented as New London was, that's a jump to play hand. This team, so young, it's a jump to play Berlin. Lots of the, Mello, Freak, some of the guys out there played well. New London's got talent, but they're just so young. So I'm dropping them out of the power rankings. I will be the first, as you know, to put them right back in, but they're going to have to rebound and show that this isn't just a complete rebuilding year.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of teams on here that have got something to prove and are certainly capable of a better result than they had in week 1, whether it's the earliness of the season, whether it's new personnel in new spots, whether it's the unknown opponent. So this top 10 is not going to look the same next week. It's not going to look the same at the end of the season. And I'm looking forward to seeing some more familiar matchups in the coming weeks.
So tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me I'm
You're
just...
an idiot.
See, it took less than 3 seconds. Tell me which teams belong where they belong. If anyone argues Killingly, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to stop reading right immediately afterwards. But after that, tell me who belongs 2 to 10. Tell me who I'm missing. Tell me why I'm just, completely off base. I am ready to answer that call because next week I firmly expect to come in and reshuffle this deck all over again. But I'm going to tell you right now, looking at this top group right here, I feel very good about 1, 2, and 3. East Lyme is playing Killingly, but also it's going to be about how they compete in that game. And then Ledger's playing NFA, right? Wyndham, Fitch. I think that whole top will be determined by those 3 games, where teams land. And then for the Bacons and the Valleys of the world, you got to keep winning. New London, you gotta find a way to get better each week. Griswold, you got to show me that last week was a fluke. Let's find out. Week 1, we overreact. Week 2, we start to become a little more positive in our assessment. So there's the power rankings. Week 2 of the ECC. Friday night game day will be at Stonington High School. The Bears will host the Lancers of Waterford. We'll see 2 0-1 teams looking to get their trajectory going in the right direction. In the meantime, keep staying tuned for content here, and we're going to get you a breakdown of that game as well as Mike DeMoro's top 10 poll in the coming days. Last thoughts? All right, I'm going to do this before we sign off. The one team I'm most right about other than Killingly.
Fitch.
The team I'm most wrong about other than Killingly.
NFA.
All right, there it is. The Peter Wappy Power Rankings alongside mine. Let's get back to it.